Okay, good morning. It's 9 a.m., so we're going to get started. We are currently streaming to the CDTC YouTube channel, just so you know. Um, I am, I will apologize in advance. I'm having some technology issues and unable to access my work computer. Um, I do not have everything, all the materials I had prepared for today, but I am able to use our website, and I will be sending out an email to our committee list as soon as I'm able to resolve my technology issues with all of the materials and attachments that I wanted to present today. So anyway, with that, Happy New Year, good morning. I'm just gonna read through who's on the call, and if I miss you, let me know when I'm done. So from my list, I see we have Andrew Tracy, Art Clayman, Charles Welge, James Arcolano, Jeanette Cato Marino, Jennifer Hogan, Jen Vigiani, Jesse Vogel, Jill Hameson, Jim Merkel, John Gillivan, John Mitchell, Jordan Solano Reed, Linda Vonderhyde, Lindsay Garney, Michael Burns, Valerie Dean, and Zach Powell. Did I miss anybody? Okay. So if everyone can keep their mics muted, unless they are presenting or speaking, that would be very appreciated. So this morning we actually have two presentations, and we're going to start with Andrew Tracy from the CDTC staff is going to talk about a project that he has been working with the town of East Greenbush on as part of CDTC and CDRPC's technical assistance program. So Andrew, if you could share your screen, or do I need to make you the host probably?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you should be the host and able to share your screen now.
Okay. How is this?
Great.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Jen. My name is Andrew Tracy, Senior Transportation Engineer with the CDTC, here to present a recent technical assistance project that we collaboratively worked on with CDRPC on behalf of the town of East Greenbush, the Gilligan Road Complete Streets Enhancement Feasibility Study. Okay. A little bit of background about the Technical Assistance Program. This is jointly administered between CDTC and CDRPC. Tech Assist grants are issued on a rolling basis until the money programmed in our work program is used up. And the purpose of the Tech Assist is to provide local government agencies with technical assistance on a variety of eligible project types listed there. These are intended to be small-scale planning studies that can get the ball rolling on projects that need some sort of technical support. So eligible project types include comprehensive plans, neighborhood planning, community design assessment, general community planning, land use planning, complete streets planning in this case, and much more. So you can find more details on the program on our website. For this project, we worked with the town of East Greenbush to examine Gilligan Road. The scope of work is outlined here. We began with a literature review. There was a lot of prior planning efforts on Gilligan Road. We wanted to make sure we took a look at all of those, see what work was done in the past, try not to duplicate any of it, and try to build upon the public input received in the past. We followed up with a pretty thorough existing conditions assessment, and I'll show you the results of some of that today. Following that, we tried to look for potential alignments for complete streets treatments, in particular for a separated bike ped side path on Gilligan Road. And we also provided recommendations for design elements for what the complete streets treatments should look like, what design elements they should incorporate, and how best to safely accommodate bicycles and pedestrians according to the latest and greatest guidance. So I'll go through all of that quickly today, beginning with an overview of the study area. So pictured here on the map highlighted in blue is the alignment for the whole length of Gilligan Road in East Greenbush, 4,600 feet long, and it connects Route 920, which is more or less Main Street in East Greenbush, all the way down to Hayes Road in the south. Hayes Road is a more residential roadway. And labeled on the map, a number of points of interest. In particular, Goff Middle School is what local stakeholders expect would be the main bicycle and pedestrian attraction. Right next to Goff are the town's Little League fields, and when games are being held, quite a few cars and quite a few bicycles and pedestrians are attending games there as well. In addition, there's a number of other residential communities nearby that could be served by the the bike ped connections on Gilligan Road. Also worth mentioning, the very recently completed Albany Hudson Electric Trail portion through East Greenbush goes just a bit off the north end of the map here. You can't see it, but now that it's complete, this would serve as another great link, as it would bring bike ped connectivity closer to the AHAT for residents living in this area. Quite a lot of prior planning work has been done on Gilligan Road, dating all the way back to 2005, when the East Greenbush Traffic Safety Committee first began discussing this road, other roads in the community. And this came on the heels of an accident I'll talk a little bit more about in 2004, involving a student attempting to cross Gilligan Road near Goff Middle School and being struck by a vehicle and injured. And that's when Gilligan Road sort of came to the public consciousness in East Greenbush as a location in need of bicycle and pedestrian accommodation. Gilligan Road was also noted in the town's land use plan back in 2006, and much of the planned development that was outlined for Gilligan Road has occurred since then. And Gilligan Road, and especially the intersection with 9 and 20, were noted as areas of safety concern as far back as 2006. More recently, in the town's amenity plan in 2017, there was recommended action to create a sidewalk linking Goff Middle School all the way up to Route 9 and 20, and eventually to the AHAT north of 9 and 20. The town of East Greenbush adopted a complete streets policy back in, recently in 2019. And this is important. The policy noted that the town wished to recognize bicyclists and pedestrians as equally important to motorists in the planning and design of all new construction and street reconstruction undertaken by the town. So that's applicable certainly to Gilligan Road. And finally, and maybe most relevantly, in 2018, the town partnered with CDTC to hold a complete streets implementation workshop in East Greenbush. At this workshop, a number of roadways were examined, including Gilligan Road. You can see some of the concept sketches created for Gilligan Road on the right here. The concept that emerged from the workshop was the creation of a 10-foot wide separated side path, which is the safest accommodation for bicycles and pedestrians, with crosswalks at the Turn Ave neighborhood across from Goff Middle School. And a lot of great public feedback was shared at these workshops. And the public feedback just further reinforced the need for bike ped accommodations in this area. And last but not least, there's an ongoing project in the project area. Pictured here is the intersection at the northern terminus of Gilligan Road with 9 and 20, which is the subject of an ongoing ADA compliance project. And For this project, a number of sidewalks, curb ramps, crosswalks are being improved. So side path on Gilligan Road would have a great connection to 9 and 20 when this project is complete. Okay, jumping down to the existing conditions. Gilligan Road is a relatively low volume roadway. Most of the recent traffic counts were around 2,000 vehicles a day. Worth noting a couple of things though. First, that there's a very high directionality to the travel. As you can see in the graph on the right, the northbound travel is far greater in the afternoon and the southbound travel is greater in the morning, likely due to school traffic. And also worth mentioning that the traffic counts that we dug up for this area, none of them reflected special event activity on Gilligan Road, such as Little League games happening at the Little League fields. When those games are happening, there's quite a lot of congestion and quite a lot of cars turning in and out of the parking area, both at the Little League field and at the school. And that can create a lot of hazardous conditions for pedestrians. So worth mentioning that when Little League activity is happening, the street can get very busy. We took a look at 5 years, the most recent 5 years of available safety data for Gilligan Road using the state's ALICE Accident Location Information System. From the 2014 to 2019 period, we found 19 crashes were reported on Gilligan Road, about 10 of which occurred at the intersection with 9 and 20 at the north terminus of Gilligan Road. And then the remaining 9 occurred spread out throughout the rest of the road, with 4 occurring at the southern terminus. Of these 19 crashes, mercifully none were with bicycles or pedestrians, at least not in the most recent 5-year period available. There were 15 crashes between motor vehicles, 3 crashes with deer, which is quite a high proportion, and 1 with a snow embankment. However, we do want to highlight one crash that occurred earlier than the analysis period. Back in 2004, a Goff Middle School student was attempting to cross Gilligan Road and near Goff Middle School, and the student was struck by a vehicle and injured. And this event was a very high-profile crash for the town, and this got the ball rolling on discussions for complete streets accommodations for Gilligan Road. Pictured here, all 19 crashes that we pulled for the last 5 years. As you can see, the majority of the crashes occurred at or near the northern terminus with Columbia Turnpike. There's a very unusually aligned driveway to access the Hannaford Plaza to the west of Gilligan Road. 3 crashes occurred at that driveway, and 4 crashes occurred at or near the Hayes intersection to the south. But the crash rate is consistent with other roadways of this type across the state, but the absolute number of crashes is fairly low simply because the traffic volume is relatively low as well. I also want to mention that we partnered with CDRPC on this project, and CDRPC compiled a variety of base maps to help with future design phases for the proposed side path. Some of those maps are pictured here. They dug up information about soil composition, elevation, right-of-way, a number of other things. So thank you very much to CDRPC for their collaboration on this project. Moving now into some of the complete streets concepts. So we had a lot of discussions with town staff early on in this project, and the town expressed that their first priority is to connect Goff Middle School to the Little League fields just north of Goff, so that students can and individuals attending Little League games can travel between the parking areas safely rather than having to walk on the side of the road. And as part of that initial phase, they also envisioned crosswalks connecting Goff Middle School to the Turnin Ave neighborhood across the street as well. The rest of the planned side path would be built out as part of future phases, they wish to connect the middle school all the way north to US 9 and 20 and eventually to the AHAT beyond as well. In addition, they want to connect future developments on Columbia Turnpike to the west of the Hannaford Plaza, because there's an opportunity alignment there. A portion of trail will be built as part of the 580 Columbia Turnpike Plan Development District, and the town does have a sewer alignment that can be used to connect the planned Gilligan Road trail to that eventual development as well, along with a number of other neighborhoods in the area. So I'll show you all of this on a map. The line highlighted in blue in the middle, that's the proposed alignment for phase 1, a short section on East Greenbush Central School right-of-way and on town of East Greenbush right-of-way to connect Goff Middle School to the Little League fields in the parking area. As part of phase 1, crosswalks would be installed at the Turner Ave has a loop shape, so there's 2 intersections with Turner Ave. Crosswalks would be installed at both the north and the south intersections with Turner. As part of future phases, they wish to connect this phase 1 alignment all the way up to Route 9 and 20 in the north. However, following a lot of discussions with the town and with local stakeholders, there isn't really a workable alignment on the east side of Gilligan Road to do this. So eventually a trail crossing would need to be installed somewhere in the phase 1 alignment, likely just at its northern terminus here at the north end of the Little League parking lot. So I'll talk a little bit more about the proposed trail crossing on some later slides. But so the phase 1 alignment would fall on the east side. The future phases connecting to 9 and 20 would fall on the west side. However, that does allow for those future phases to connect up to the orange alignment seen at the north end of the map, which is a trail segment planned to be constructed by a developer as part of a future apartment and retail build out on Columbia Turnpike, right here near the Hannaford Plaza. So because that portion of trail is being built, the town would wish to take advantage of that and connect to it using this gold colored dashed line, which is a sewer easement that the town has access to. So future phases could connect to this side path to other neighborhoods in the area, such as the Park Ave neighborhood to the east, and not illustrated on the map, but certainly a desire of the town is to somehow connect to the Albany Hudson Electric Trail as well, which is just to the north of 9 and 20, and to Hayes in the south. So the safest way to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians and the preferred concept that emerged from that 2018 workshop was to construct a separated shared use side path on Gilligan Road. Separated from traffic, best for safety. Unfortunately, uses the most right-of-way as well. But throughout much of Gilligan Road, we think that this much right-of-way is available with a couple of exceptions. The recommended width seen in many resources is 12 feet with a width of at least 10 feet preferred, 2-foot shoulders, grade less than 5%. For most of Gilligan Road, the grade isn't an issue. There's a couple of segments where the grade slightly exceeds 5%, but we don't think it's going to be problematic. The side path grade can exceed 5% if the road does, and it's just a couple of short segments. Pictured here on the right is a great sketch from the Empire State Trail Design Guide, illustrating the preferred cross-section for a shared use side path. It's recommended that the side path be separated from a road in the Empire State Trail Design Guide by at least 6.5 feet. For much of the proposed alignment, this is going to be possible, but there's a couple of sections where the roadway separation will need to be a little bit less than that. So some sort of vertical elements or physical barriers might need to be considered for those places. Federal Highway Administration has published a great resource called the STEP, Safe Transportation for Every Pedestrian, which outlines a lot of the safety countermeasures that should be incorporated for the proposed crosswalks at Turner Avenue, at the Greenbush Terrace Apartments in the north end of the project area, and at other locations as well. And a lot of these crosswalk concepts are also applicable to the eventual trail crossing that was proposed for the north end of the Little League field. So the Federal Highway Administration recommends every sidewalk have this suite of safety countermeasures considered, including high visibility crosswalk markings, in-street signage where appropriate, advanced yield or stop sign and markings where appropriate, nighttime lighting, and some sort of lighting treatment such as RRFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or pedestrian hybrid beacons. And I'll show you some local examples of those treatments on the coming slides. So I think it's particularly important to incorporate these safety countermeasures at the proposed crosswalks at Turner Ave because there is no stop or yield control on Gilligan at those locations. So students that live in the Turner Ave neighborhood crossing to Goff wouldn't have the expectation of vehicles stopping for them every time. So the full suite of treatments should be considered there. Okay, on the next few slides, I'm going to show local examples of crosswalks or trail crossings that we felt made great, local examples for what the Gilligan Road treatments should look like. So pictured here is a crossing on the Mohawk Hudson bike trail, which incorporates a lot of the treatments that Federal Highway and the other resources recommend. This particular treatment has a push button flashing beacon. It also has the high vis crosswalks, detectable warning surface on the approach, even a tiny little stop sign just to let bicyclists know that they're expected to stop prior to crossing and that vehicles have no stop control. Another local example on that same trail, the Mohawk Hudson bike trail. This one's at Aqueduct Road, and it features the RRFBs I mentioned that came up in the Federal Highway's STEP guidance. There's a close-up of the RRFB pictured here on the right. Pedestrian pushes the button. These blink very, very brightly. They can be seen very well at night as well. And this is being seen increasingly commonly as a treatment, especially at unsignalized, uncontrolled trail crossings, where there's otherwise no warning to the drivers that bicyclists and pedestrians are expected to cross here. Another example in or near Saratoga Springs is the Railroad Run trail crossing with Route 50. This features not an RFB, but a full-blown traffic signal. So when a bicyclist or pedestrian pushes the button, the light turns red and they can cross very safely. This is obviously the safest way to accommodate a trail crossing, also the most costly, also the most disruptive to traffic. So there's always trade-offs. But because the Gilligan Road trail needs to fully cross Gilligan Road at the north end of the Little League fields, this is one of the treatments that should be considered. And some very brand new recent examples of trail crossings in East Greenbush. These were very recently shared with me by GPI, the design consultant for this section of the Albany Hudson Electric Trail. Pictured here on the left is where the AHET crosses Elliott Road, and that crossing features, again, RRFBs. And on the right is a fully signalized crossing at Troy Road as well. So both of these are local examples. They're in East Greenbush, recently completed. They look great. They incorporate all of the Federal Highway's STEP, Safe Transportation for Every Pedestrian, the recommended safety countermeasures there. So these are great local examples to look toward when building out the east or the Gilligan Road side path. And this will be my final slide. One of the challenges we're facing on when sketching out the Gilligan Road side path is what to do for the portion of side path that needs travel through the Little League parking area. So if you look at the blue line in the small map on the left, you can see that section of the trail needs to fall on the east side of Gilligan Road, so I can take advantage of the public right-of-way, the schools and the town's right-of-way. We can't move it to the west side because it would go through everyone's front yards. But a portion of this trail would need to cross through the parking area with the Little League fields. And you can see in the concept sketch on the right, they just put a dashed line on that sketch to indicate that something would need to be done. But we don't want to just stripe the side path through the parking area. We don't feel that would be the safest way to accommodate, because the parking area has no access management at all. People can turn in or out of the parking area anywhere they want to. This was formerly just an open gravel parking area. It's paved now, there's striping, but there's still a lot of aisles where cars can turn in or out wherever they need to. So there's a lot of potential conflict points with bicycles and pedestrians using the side path. There's no expectation of, this is where the vehicles will be turning in or out, and this is where the pedestrians are expected to cross the parking area. It would be sort of a free-for-all if we just striped it through the parking area. So it's recommended that some sort of a physical barrier, such as a curb, be provided to limit the vehicles using the parking area to 1 or 2 aisles, just so that there's some expectation of where the vehicles will be turning and where there's a conflict point with the bicycles and pedestrians. And the side path as well would need to use, we expect just the first row of parking spaces would be lost when the side path is built through the parking area. But with some sort of a vertical barrier, physical separation, like a curb, we can much more safely accommodate everyone that's going to be walking through this parking area, which is especially important when there's activity at the Little League fields. People will be turning in and out pretty frequently and mingling with the pedestrian and bike traffic. So some sort of solution is needed here to just give drivers the expectation that there will be pedestrians here. They need to slow down. They need to be careful when turning in and out, and to give side path users some expectation of where the vehicles will be in conflict with them. So this was my final slide. I'll just speak briefly to the future of the project. East Greenbush has a design consultant on board, and they are working on the phase 1 of the side path, which was the portion near Goff Middle School and the Little League fields. And that portion includes the crosswalks over to the Turn and Ave neighborhood across the street as well. So the ball is rolling. We had a local stakeholder workshop in December. A lot of great feedback received. The school is very eager and willing to work with the town to implement this first phase of side path. They're willing to put up some money and lend the use of their right-of-way for this purpose. And the town plans to do future phases to connect up to Route 9 and 20 and all of the nearby neighborhoods in the Hannaford Plaza and the future development district to the west of Gilligan Road as well. But those are future phases that will occur after phase 1 is complete. So that's all the content I have. Thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Andrew. We actually have 3 comments / questions in the chat. So Jim Merkel just commented that he believes the aqueduct crossing beacons are microwave or infrared actuated with no need to push the button.
Okay, that's very cool. Thank you.
And Jen Vigiani commented the potential loss of parking at the Sorensko Little League Babe Ruth fields could be gained through a shared agreement with the middle school to use their parking during softball and baseball play.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you very much for that feedback. That came up during the local stakeholder meeting. We expect, as I mentioned, lose a few spaces. And then also because the aisles don't connect to one another. And if you wanted to get from one aisle to the other, you kind of need to drive out into the road and come back in. or drive through empty spaces. With the side path here, and if we did limit access to just one or two of the aisles, then the aisles would also need to be connected up in the back here as well, so that traffic could circulate. So you'd lose a few spaces, but the idea is you would gain all of the parking area at the Goff Middle School, and folks could just walk between them very easily with the side path here as well. And Goff is very soon going to undergo a project to improve student pickup and drop off in front of the school here. So that may help as well. And the side path is being contemplated as part of that project as well. So yeah, thank you very much for the comment.
And then Art Clayman commented on the first example of crossing beacons is in Rotterdam Junction on Route 5S, where a cyclist was killed years ago. In the 3 or 4 years it has existed, the device has literally not been in operation more than it has been because of equipment problems. I think Art's saying it's kind of been plagued with equipment problems and hasn't been operational for most of the time it's existed. So
okay.
And John Gilligan, he asked a good question. How is Gilligan Road designated? County, city, etc. Is this road not a major cut through as well to avoid Columbia Turnpike?
It's a local road. Jurisdiction is town of East Greenbush. It's traffic volume is fairly low, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 vehicles a day. There is a perception among locals that it's used as a cut through, and that was the impetus for the here, I'll share my screen again. That was the impetus for the unusual alignment of the Hannaford driveway at the north end of the project area. The Hannaford driveway, you can see it best on this map here. It has a very unusual alignment coming in where you can only turn left out of the driveway. Right turns are prohibited, which is very unusual. I don't know if I see that too often, but that was done because there was a perception among locals that folks would turn into the Hannaford and then turn right onto Gilligan and go south and use Gilligan as kind of a cut through, which the locals didn't want and the school wasn't comfortable with. However, this Hannaford driveway, first off, it's pretty clear that no one respects the right turn prohibition. Lots of people make the right turn anyway, and it's just a very unusual alignment. So as part of future phases, the town would reconsider aligning this into just a very standard right angle junction. So to answer your question, yes, there's some perception among locals that it is used as a cut through or a bypass, but traffic volume is still relatively low.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for Andrew before we move on to our next presentation? Okay, so I will get the slides from Andrew and attach them to our meeting notes so everyone can take a look, or if you weren't able to make today's meeting, you can take a look. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, so Charles, I'm going to make you a host, and can you share your screen?
Let's see. Now you're talking about my technical challenges, so.
Let me know if I can help walk you through it.
I'm lost, Jen.
Okay, so how about maybe as an alternative, if you want, you can, do you want to email me that file that you had emailed it to my CDTC address, but would you email it to my Gmail address and I can open it and share it for you?
Sure.
Okay. So while Charles is doing that, I'll just give some other updates on CDTC and other activities that are ongoing. The CDTC office is still closed. I am here today, but I'm all by myself. So we are closed for the foreseeable future, and we will let people know when we reopen. And if you do need to get in touch with CDTC, email right now is the best way, but you can call and leave a message and someone will check and get back to you. Charles, you probably need my Gmail address. It's jennifer.saponis@gmail.com. Hopefully I don't get lots of spam for saying that.
So I'm sorry, send it to the cdtcmpo.org.
No, if you could actually send it to jennifer.saponis@gmail.com, because I don't have access to my work, the CDTC network right now. Some other updates, we had talked about the New York State Greenway Trails Plan last meeting. There was a public forum last week on this, and the public is encouraged to submit written comments about the draft plan until January 19th. So on the agenda, I included the email address for state parks and a website for where to view that plan, but I will send that information out again in the notes. Also, the 2021 Capital Coexist solicitation has been released. We're calling it Capital Coexist 2.0 because we have updated the program a bit to kind of expand it to more traffic safety programs and elements. So really encouraging some activities around speeding and some of the other traffic safety issues that we have in our region, distracted driving, general aggressive driving, and if projects can connect to some of these these focus areas for us and focus issues, those are the projects that are going to be prioritized. So basically the same kind of spirit and objective of the program that we've been managing for the last several years, but just kind of expanding it and trying to get kind of a new, maybe fresh approach to traffic safety to try out, because we have had a lot of really successful projects and we'd like to continue to support them. But testing out some new things and working with new partners is always something that we really like to do. Charles, were you able to send that presentation by any chance?
Yes, jennifer.saponis@gmail.com.
Yep. Oh, okay. All right, if you give me a moment. And Charles, if you could mouse over to my square on the screen where I am on the Zoom, and there should be 3 little dots in the right-hand corner. And if you click them, I think you should be able to make me the host again.
All right, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize. What do you need me to do?
Okay. Are you looking at the screen where you can you see me on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So if you put your mouse over the box that I'm in, there should be in the right-hand corner 3 little dots. And if you click them, one of the options should be like make host or switch host.
Sorry, I don't see 3 little dots.
Huh. Can you click on if you click on the box that I'm in?
It's a little blue box. You got to go up to the right-hand corner of your photo, of the photo. That should help you.
I apologize, but I'm clicking the blue box and nothing's happening.
Can you stop sharing your screen? Maybe if you do that first.
Thing just came up.
It's okay. I've been doing these Zooms for multiple times a day, almost every day for months. And last week we had a public forum and I had major issues and had to end a meeting. So don't feel bad because. So there should be like maybe a red box or something that says stop sharing. Yep, there you go. And now if you mouse over to my square, you might be able to click those 3 little buttons and see like make host or something like that.
Oh, it says more.
Oh, I am the host now. Okay, we are all set. All right, so Charles, oops. I am going to share my screen and you just tell me when to go to the next slide, okay?
All right, great, thanks.
Right.
Well, good morning, folks. My name's Charles Welge with the Albany County Department of Health. I apologize for technical challenges. Evidently, I'm a 20th century man living in the 21st century. But I wanted to give you some context about our pedestrian safety program that is now in its 2nd year. Next slide, please. So to give you some context, periodically, local health departments and hospitals are required under public health law to identify or conduct a snapshot of the health of our communities and identify priorities. And over time, Albany Department of Health, as well as local hospitals, namely the St. Peter's Health Partners and Albany Medical Center, have identified obesity as a risk factor for a whole range of chronic diseases. And in that regard, some of the interventions we have advanced over time has an interest in promoting physical activity and providing access to healthy options, whether it's food or drink. And in terms of physical activity, understandably under this COVID pandemic, more people have been out, but our concern as well is that people do it safely. And so we've been the recipient now for 2 consecutive years of a Governor's Traffic Safety Program Award to try and address traffic safety and pedestrian safety concerns, principally along the Route 5 Central Avenue corridor. So in terms of that particular initiative, what I wanted to do is give you some context and background in terms of some of the data that steered our interventions, what our solutions were, and one of the significant observations in the year 2020 is understandably in March, with the advent of the COVID pandemic, we had to pivot significantly on how, in an environment of social distancing, we were going to engage the public and promote safe pedestrian travel. We'll talk about the goals and objectives of our program, some evaluation statistics, and finally, some of the challenges we face and the achievements that occurred. Next slide, please. So to kind of shape our interventions, and we certainly thank CDTC for, providing data and context. We look at the data to kind of identify opportunities for improvement and some of the challenges to be overcome. So this kind of actually echoes the presentation from December. And if you look at the map on the left, you can see the concentration of fatal and injury of pedestrian crashes. Not surprisingly, they're located in dense populated areas. And in the bottom, kind of in the middle, you can see what kind of represents the Central Avenue kind of corridor going from east to west. Some other data that, we use in terms of shaping our work was looking at information in terms of the age groups that were most affected in terms of pedestrian injury. And you can see groups from ages 21 to 29 were the highest in terms of pedestrians killed or injured. So we focused, specific interventions on that. Other related issues were the time of day for many pedestrian crashes was between 3 and 9 p.m. By day of the week, there ended up being more crashes in Albany County on Thursday and Friday. And as many of you who may be familiar with this data, the fall months of October, November, December were where many of the pedestrian crashes were concentrated. So when we designed our initiative, we obviously took that into context. And the pie chart at the bottom echoes what was presented last month. And not surprisingly, you can see Colony and the city of Albany having a significant number of pedestrian bicycle crashes for a 5-year period. And so both of those obviously are key communities along the Central Avenue corridor. Next slide, please. So our solutions were threefold. Understandably, the 3 E's in terms of trying to address injuries are engineering, enforcement, education. The health department's kind of portfolio is a focus on education. And so the 3 principal initiatives we took on were to provide community outreach and education for those who principally used the Central Avenue corridor and comparable east-west pedestrian resources. We looked at youth and school-based education based on the data showing that younger youthful people were more apt to be involved in pedestrian crashes, and conducted a public awareness campaign accordingly. Next slide, please. So our ultimate goal in terms of framing the whole initiative was by the end of the year 2020 to try and reduce the number of pedestrians injured or killed by 5%. And understandably, there's not a cause and effect of our education initiative, but hopefully it was a contributing factor to change. We know that behavior kind of evolved over time with the pandemic, where some people were understandably socially distancing, perhaps not going to destinations as much. But interestingly enough, and maybe Jen can speak to this later, there's been some national data to show that car crashes actually in the United States have increased during the pandemic. I don't, there's some speculation that people may travel faster, be a little more impatient. But our ultimate goal in last year was to reduce by 5% from a baseline of 159 crashes in 2019 to at least 151 crashes in 2020. Next slide, please. So the first objective was to conduct community outreach and education. And our immediate interest was to conduct traffic safety education for 300 persons. In March, when the pandemic started, that forced us to kind of pause. And our principal intervention that was successful in previous years was to conduct street teams, which were essentially to deploy a couple of public health educators on key intersections where crash data indicated there was risk, and to provide pedestrians information and guidance in terms of safety. That was also an opportunity to share some materials. They could be fluorescent vests or slap bracelets, in addition to education. And that's been an evidence-based intervention that has been successful in a number of places across the country. But understandably, when social distancing was a way of life, that intervention had to be paused. The second major part of community outreach and education was to try and conduct events at 25 public gathering sites. And that was partially completed. So in that regard, we distributed C and BC materials at 9 sites. Some of you may recall or be aware that the City of Albany Department of Recreation hosted a Play Streets initiative where they closed off blocks of city streets to try and encourage people to come out, be socially distanced, but engage in some physical activity and kind of remove the isolation that social distancing kind of encouraged. And so we tabled and promoted pedestrian safety at those events. We also conducted outreach with a number of elementary schools. We distributed materials along the Central Avenue corridor to businesses. One of the, I guess, observations over time is Central Avenue, especially in the town of Colony, has a fair number of motels. And what we've seen over time is people who are staying at those hotels may try to cross the 4 lanes of Central Avenue, not necessarily at a crosswalk, but kind of unilaterally. And so we thought those sites were really important to emphasize the message about safe pedestrian travel. And so, understandably, we conducted outreach at 9 sites, provided education at 4 community events, which were those Play Streets initiatives, where at least 142 people were reached. In the picture on the far right is our public health educator who participated in the annual Albany County Traffic Safety Awareness Weekend at Crossgates Mall. We were also involved in the Hannaford Kids Expo before COVID hit. And if you've ever been to that event, obviously there's opportunity for great visibility there. Next slide, please. And then we wanted to focus on youth and children and try and provide traffic safety education to 250 children. We had a great planning meeting with both the City School District of Albany and the South Colony School District, understanding that Students from both those school districts were understandably in a position to walk along Central Avenue. And we introduced, or were planned to introduce, in-person presentations in either a classroom or larger venue. Understandably, we were poised to implement that when the pandemic hit. What we've been able to do is at least share some audio-visual materials with those school districts to share now that they're kind of operating virtually. So that was something that understandably we couldn't face children one-on-one and kind of got paused. Next slide, please. And finally, probably the most successful way in terms of pivoting was trying to conduct a public awareness campaign. And we think it's important to use different media and different touch points because people receive information in a variety of ways. The Albany County Department of Health has a clinic that principally serves pediatric patients that have dental problems, but we also have adult services and mental health services. And so in that clinic waiting area, we were constantly streaming pedestrian safety videos, reaching approximately 175 people. We use a social media platform regularly on a monthly basis to promote pedestrian safety with close to 15,000 subscribers. And finally, and you can see on the picture on the left, we work to locate, see, and be seen posters at bus shelters along the Central Avenue corridor and kept them up for 12 weeks. Next slide, please. So in terms of evaluation, as I mentioned, we can't necessarily claim credit for the full credit for the reduction in pedestrian crashes over time. But you can see from these charts that a projection for 2020 in terms of playing trends out, we're on the order of 103 crashes or pedestrian crashes last year. And so even though our goal was at least 151 or less, we feel pleased that we were able, in conjunction with enforcement and engineering interventions, to see the crash data improve over time. Next slide, please. And so reflecting on some of the achievements and challenges, I think part of this was a partnership. We worked with law enforcement as well as the County Traffic Safety Board, kind of design our interventions. And so the crashes did reduce over time. In terms of deciding where we were going to locate interventions and what events to participate in, it was fundamentally important for us to work with our partners in the community to see which would be the most meaningful places to provide education. And then in this age of multiple media resources, we thought that using different communication channels, whether it was bus kiosks or social media, or potentially streaming curriculum through the school districts, was a way of reaching a broad audience. You know, understandably, the most significant challenge we continue to face is the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and the requirements of social distancing. It certainly precluded one-on-one and face-to-face interventions. And the county health department has also gone through some transitions in terms of staff. I'll share with you, most of our time is consumed by COVID. I'm pleased to take this hour and a half this morning to talk about something else. But we, have gone through some transitions. Our public health educator working on this initiative is Jack Selleck, in addition to myself. And we think whether it's supporting complete streets interventions, being involved in pedestrian safety, all of these types of work that the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is involved in are fundamental to trying to encourage physical activity safely, and at least from a health perspective, trying to address really a significant concern about obesity and the risk factors it presents for not only chronic disease, but it's also a heightened risk factor for the serious effects and manifestations of COVID-19. So we look forward to being flexible and pivoting in the year 2021. And I want to close by saying, even though this initiative and grant focused on the Central Avenue corridor, we've expanded this initiative with different funding opportunities to other at-risk municipalities, namely Cohoes and Watervliet, who have requested presentations, materials, and education as well. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and invite the last slide, which has got our contact information. And I'd be glad to answer any questions or listen to comments.
Thank you, Charles. If anyone has any questions or comments and either wants to put them in the chat or unmute themselves, please feel free to do so. I know, Charles, you mentioned the crash trends related to COVID, and we don't have the the most recent local data. We did show some data a couple of meetings ago, or last meeting, related to crash trends and safety, but there has been discussion about crashes increasing through the pandemic and mostly related to speeding. So as congestion has kind of, travel behaviors change, there's less congestion. People are driving faster or a little bit more recklessly, or think that they can multitask while driving because there aren't as many people on the road. It has increased crashes, but also there seems to be less enforcement for a number of factors. We know law enforcement has reported, fewer tickets during some period of the pandemic. I think most regular enforcement has resumed, but there was a period where, to social distance and everything, there was less. So.
Can I add, this is a very fine presentation, and I appreciate the health department's work with pedestrians. And I hope that you'll extend it to bicyclists sometime soon, especially since, particularly amongst children between 5 and 15, it's the highest form of injuries and fatalities, generally boys being even more prone to getting into injuries. For CDTC on Route 5 and perhaps a few other selected roads, I want to raise again the discussion we had at length about the marking of the wide outside lanes. I believe that wide outside lanes adds to people speeding in that lane, and it also additionally adds to larger vehicles, trucks, etc., being closer to the pedestrians that they can't see what is going on, as well as they would have if the cars were that far, 3 feet or more in from the sidewalk. It's a design feature that has been discussed at length. And I think a simple fog line is the best that can be achieved given the current construction, but it may help. It's worth trying. It's just paint.
Thanks, Ivan.
If I could comment this, Charles Welge, I just wanted to be clear, and I probably wasn't at the beginning. This particular grant was kind of constrained or defined principally to focus on Central Avenue because it's one of the state's designated 20 top routes for potential accidents, but it was also constrained or at least restricted to addressing pedestrian concerns. That being said, what the County Department of Health has done is kind of segregated anything that dealt with Central Avenue pedestrians or vests and slap bracelets or fluorescent green. But for other communities or even bicyclists, we have fluorescent orange. So we haven't lost fact that bicyclists are certainly at risk for some of the same concerns that pedestrians are. I apologize for not being clear about some of the constraints of the grant, but we're certainly aware and want to promote bicycle safety as well.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Charles? I have Charles' slides, so I'll include them with the notes. I do want to thank Charles for taking time this morning to meet with us and present, because we know that the county departments of health have their hands full right now, and are doing a lot of things in a lot of different directions. So Charles, thank you so much for taking time this morning to be with us and to present on this project.
You're welcome.
Okay. So going back to our agenda, sorry. Okay. So the next item in the agenda is the Capital District mobility trends. And we don't have any new data to report now, but we do continue to observe traffic data and other information that is helping us better understand how people's travel behavior has been affected and shaped by COVID-19, and how, as things change and maybe as we recover and vaccinations roll out and people return to offices or don't return to offices, we don't know. We'll continue to watch that and see, what does that mean for future transportation planning? What does that mean for a long range plan, which we still plan on doing some regular kind of amendments and updates to based on COVID-19 impact. So if your community is collecting information, if you're tracking anything, if you do have data or information that is related to COVID recovery and transportation, please feel free to send it along to me or anyone at CDTC. We would, appreciate seeing it and being able to keep it in our files as we continue to monitor this. Another update since we last met is the 2020 MUTCD proposed rulemaking. So I did have some notes and stuff on this that I wanted to present, but I'm going to have to share them with the group by email. I think I saw that Valerie Dean from DOT was on the call, or if anyone from DOT is on the call that wants to make a comment on this, please feel free to do so. You don't have to, but there is a link to the proposed rulemaking in the agenda, and I'm going to send it out. If you have comments or questions, please let me know. The MUTCD is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So it is updated regularly to kind of provide, not kind of, but it does provide guidance and sets rules for the type of markings and signage and design of roadways. So things like whether or not you can apply a bike lane, how wide it can be, where that the bike lane marking can be in relation to the curb or the rest of the street. That is all laid out and specified in the MUTCD. And in New York State issues a supplement to the MUTCD after the MUTCD is adopted. So we can probably expect, I don't want to speak for DOT, but we can probably expect to see an update or information from DOT shortly after a new rule is adopted. Is anyone from DOT on the line, or anyone who has been following the MUTCD update want to make a comment? Thank you, Jim. Jim Merkel pasted the link into the chat if anyone is interested. Okay. CDTC planning initiatives. So some of our programs that we've had open and have been accepting applications on a rolling basis are currently paused or closed. So right now, we are not accepting new applications for technical assistance or the Complete Streets workshops. If you have questions about them, please reach out. And for Smart Communities, we're currently in the process of looking at rescoping that program. So again, these are programs that we switched from having deadlines for applications to accepting applications on a rolling basis, just because of some of the issues that we knew local governments were experiencing with COVID-19. So, you know, we will keep everyone updated on those. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help answer them. There is a spreadsheet that went out with the agenda that has information on the status of all of CDTC's planning initiatives, including linkage and the technical assistance program, as well as other regional plans that we're working on. So if you have questions about that, please refer to that spreadsheet, which I will send out again in the notes. The 2021-22 linkage applications were due last month. We did receive 4, and there is a committee that is meeting to evaluate them and make recommendations for prioritization and funding. And the last thing I will add is that CDTC is in the process of updating its public participation plan. So it released a draft public participation plan, and it is accepting public comments on this draft. We had some public forums last week, and the plan lays out different strategies and goals for engagement with the public. So not only does it explain what CDTC is required to do based on federal transportation legislation and state guidance on transparency and public engagement, but you know, it shows how CDTC's goal is to go beyond that and to really try and include the public in dialogue and discussion on the metropolitan planning process or the long range transportation planning process. And traditionally, we've done things like have public meetings, and it's really been tied to our linkage program, because that's the way we have found has been the most effective way to engage with the public in kind of a more face-to-face, intimate way. But we are hoping to to expand that and to do that more regularly, and not just through in-person public meetings related to a very specific project or plan, but on a regular basis. We want to know how people are getting from point A to point B, and what are the barriers they face, and you know, how is the economy affecting the travel? How is health affecting their travel, all these different things. And it's important for us to know what's going on and to understand how the public moves and how the public wants to move and things that are impacting general mobility so that we can continue to adapt and create a system that works for everyone. Also, we want people to know what is going on in their community, in the region. What are the plans? What's going to be built? What are the issues, and how can everyone play a part in implementing the goals and vision that is a new vision? So the public participation plan kind of outlines the strategy. It may also be useful for local government agencies that are looking to do public outreach, because it has what we call like a community connections toolbox that really explains different strategies, how to do them, and what kind of resources or time they involve. And we hope to be able to really embed this into our project scopes to reach more people, especially people who have traditionally been excluded or felt excluded from the public planning process. So please take a look. I'll include a link to the draft plan and information in our in our meeting notes, but please take a look at it and let me know if you have any comments. We like hearing about, why you can't come to public meetings, what ways you prefer to engage in the public outreach process. Is it surveys? Is it videos? Is it social media? Is it virtual meetings like this? We'd like to know. And I also have, I know Lindsay from CDTA had given us the end of season stats on CDPHP cycle. She did send them to me prior to the meeting. And again, it's my bad, I can't currently access the network, but I will share a short summary of that in our meeting notes. Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for February 9th. It will be virtual again because we don't anticipate having the office open or hosting public meetings in person anytime soon. If you have any other comments or questions and want to unmute and update us all now, please do so. We have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, Jen, I'd like to talk a little bit about an effort that my group Cycle Schenectady, our 2-year-old group, has been involved in recently. As you and Charles both pointed out, speeding has become a even bigger problem during the pandemic. And Schenectady, which has a lot of strong neighborhood associations, as well as a really good umbrella group called Schenectady United Neighborhoods, has taken up that problem. And so I saw that as an opportunity to forge ahead and make common cause with the neighborhood groups who are predominantly concerned about pedestrian safety, but the same issues apply to bicycling as well. So I got together with the president of the umbrella group, and we launched this initiative, which we're working on a petition that we're going to circulate within the next couple of days. I spoke at during privilege of the floor at the city council meeting last night and made some remarks which talked about speeding and the effects of it. And, enforcement is not really the answer. It's part of it, perhaps, but road design and complete streets are bigger, more important approaches to it. And so that's one of the things we're pushing for, complete streets. We're going to try to use that, as well as a reduction in the default city speed limit from 30 to 25 miles an hour. And during my remarks, I made the case for the reduction of speed limits in that, there's a direct correlation between pedestrian and cyclist safety and vehicle speed. At 15 miles an hour, like there's a 10% chance of being killed or seriously injured in a crash. And that number jumps to like 50% when the car is going 30 miles an hour. So that's really important. Also pointing out that in a city, it's not about how fast you go between stoplights and stop signs. You can go 45 miles an hour and then you stack up behind all the waiting cars and do it all over again. And it makes virtually no difference in your arrival time, that sort of thing. I also went beyond the obvious benefits of walking and bicycling, health and environment, to talk about community building, and when a place is a place where that people really care about and look out for each other and out on the streets recreating on, that's going to be really important in terms of community building, but also things like crime, because you care about the place you live in rather than a space just to be gotten through on the way to somewhere else. So that's another argument for that. And equity, beyond that issue, encompassing equity is that in cities and lower income neighborhoods, a disproportionate number of people are young, elderly, disabled, and their poverty or age should not put them at greater risk of being killed or seriously injured by a speeding car. So we're pushing for a complete streets approach. And I pointed out that even if you have it, it doesn't matter if it's on the books if you don't do anything with it. I also said that, Albany, Saratoga Springs, Ballston Spa, among others, are putting complete streets in the forefront of their planning efforts. And that's pretty much it. I also, as an example of something that's on the books, Schenectady City Council passed a bicycle infrastructure master plan in 2017, and virtually nothing has been done. No paint on the sidewalk, no signs at all. So you need both. You need the legislation and real action. So we're hopeful that there's kind of a critical mass. I think we have a lot of support, and the petition will show it, I think. I already got a few emails from city council members saying they'd like to work with us on this. So that's a hopeful sign. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Good luck with that. Keep us updated on the progress of it.
Will do.
Great. Does anyone have, Jeanette had asked a question about bike to work this year, and CDTC hasn't discussed what our plans are yet. I think we're hoping that things are safe enough to have an event again, but we should know end of February, March, what we feel comfortable doing, and we'll make an announcement. But right now we don't have anything confirmed or planned.
Okay, we hope if it does get planned, that it aligns with the National Bike to Work Day. I know it was kind of moving away from that, but our hope, Bike-A-Toga's hope, is that it aligns with that as a regional effort. And then I had a couple of announcements from Bike-A-Toga.
Okay.
We were actually, okay, real quick. We're getting a cargo bike to be able to go out to events and do repairs and have educational activities outside of our basement location and being able to repair and do the work outside in a more safer environment. We just allocated funding for that. And then we're starting up our slow rolls again, starting January 31st at 1 p.m. in Saratoga, and anyone is welcome to attend. And that's it.
Thank you. Ivan, did you have something?
Yes, the 3-foot safe passing standard has again been put into state legislation. Phil Stack, local assemblyman, has sponsored it, and they're getting additional co-signers and a Senate's backing. So we'll have more information on that later. It's a very simple bill so far, and we're hoping it will pass because it's needed and a national standard by now.
Thanks, Ivan.
Hey, Jen.
Sure.
I know you ran over, but real quick, I sat in the Town and County Planning Board meeting last week. And what interests me very much was a lot of people, when they want to get access to the Mohawk Hudson Bike and Hike Trail, across Route 7, they have to take Rosendale Road down, which is, if anyone's been on that road, it's steep and there's no shoulder. So bottom line is that their engineering consultant put together a plan to put a multi-use path access through the back of Keeler Honda Motor Car Company, which is revitalizing or changing their whole campus. It's getting big. It's getting huger than it is. It's going to take up what used to be the property. But bottom line was that their proposal, I actually went down to the site and looked at it, and I shook my head. I said, this is not going to work. And luckily, Zach Harrison, who is an engineer on the planning board, and Sean McGuire, who is the new Joe LaCivita for the director of the Town and County Economic and Development, they came to the same conclusion without me having to tell them that it should be behind the Cumbie Farms and the access down to River Road.
I can't get it.
So the bottom line is that it's very much in the preliminary. This is just a proposal. So, but it was good to see that the town's actually looking at it and evaluating on the same merit that a bike and pedestrian advocate would look at it from a very high level. The other thing is Albany Bicycle Coalition had a Zoom meeting with the Walkable Albany group. That's a new group, or a group that's been around. And I won't give you a lot of detail. We just kicked off a meeting with the two individuals, Jackie and Andrew, on that. And we hope to establish a good rapport and a good collaboration with the Walkable Albany folks in the future.
That's great. Thanks, John. Okay, so CDTC actually has an internal Zoom meeting in 1 minute, so we'll get kicked off if we keep going. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Please stay safe. Happy New Year. The Empire State Trail is open. So please, if you are brave enough to get out there and ride in this weather, do so, or walk. And I will see everyone in